Good morning, class 7. I am Anil Bhagat, your science teacher from Modern International School, Hiswa. Welcome back to our e-learning program. Today, in this video lecture, we will discuss about chapter 12, that is reproduction in plants. And in the previous lecture, we had discussed about sexual reproduction in plants. So, flower is the main reproductive part of the plant, and in flower there is a pedicel, that is a stalk of the flower by which the flower attached with the stem. Then comes the thalamus. On the thalamus there is ovary, and comes the petal like structure called sepals, normally green in color, and they protect the flower when they are in bud condition. Then comes the colorful petals which attract the flowers, which attract the insects. Then comes the male part of the flower, and this male part of the flower is called the stamen. And on the top of the stamen there is anther, or a pollen sac is there. In the anther, pollen grains are there. If you rub the anther, some small sticky substances stick in your fingers. These are called the pollen grains. When the flower is mature, these pollens come out from this this pollen sac and anther part and go and sit on the female reproductive part, that is called the pistil. I told you that ovary is there. From the ovary there is a filament like a structure grow, and top of there is a stalk like a structure called the style, and on that tip there is a sticky part called the stigma. On that, these pollens will come and fall, and then they form a tube like structure inside the style, and from that the pollens will come inside the ovary, and then this pollen is mixed. This pollen will inside the ovary, ovules are there, so these pollens and ovules mix together. This gametes, that is the pollens, that is the male one, mixed inside the ovary with the egg. Inside the ovule, egg is there mixed with the egg, and then they form a new individual called zygote. So after this, what happens? After this, what happens in sexual reproduction? When male part from the pollen, that is the pollen grains, come and meet with the egg, and then they form the zygote. So this formation of the mixing of two gametes, that is the male and female, the result will be a new cell, that is called the zygote. The result will be a new cell, that is called a zygote. Now we have to understand something about flower, that we already discussed, that there are four parts of the flower. So these four parts or four whorls, if present in a flower, it is called a complete flower. If any part of this, if any whorls of this absent, it is called incomplete flower. In some flowers only male part is present or female part is present. That flower is called unisexual flower. And in some flower both parts are present. That is called bisexual flower. So if all the four whorls are present, they are perfect or complete flower. If all the four whorls are not present, it is called the incomplete flower. If only male part is present or female part is present, that is called incomplete flower or a unisexual flower, like the flower of hemp, that is bhang. So unisexual flower like watermelon, bottle gourd, cucumber, hemp, these are the unisexual flower. There are the flowers which have both the reproductive part male and female, they are called the bisexual flower. That is flowers of rose, lily, china rose, gulmohar. They are the bisexual flowers. Now comes the next process in this, that is the pollination. So in pollination, the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma is called pollination. The transfer of anthers from the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma is called pollination. These pollens have a tough protective coat and which prevents from dying up. Now the pollens are light, very light, so they can travel by the help of wind or water, or it attached with the insect in the insect's body when they come and sit on the flower due to the attraction of the colorful part of the flower, and also sometimes to suck the nectar from the flower. So these pollens stick in the body of insect and they will travel with the insect, which we discuss in the next portion, that is seed dispersal. Also we discuss this rows, but here pollens will travel by the help of water and wind and insects, sometimes by the human body also it will travel. Now when pollens lands on the stigma of a flower of the same kind, okay, some of the flower land on the stigma of the flower of the same kind and some may be on so here we have to understand that the transfer of pollen from the anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. This much is clear. That is, the transfer of pollen from anther to the stigma of a flower is the pollination. But here two categories of pollination. Number one, if the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, it is called self-pollination. If the pollens from the anther of a flower land on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, is called the self-pollination. Number two, if the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of a flower of different plant of the same kind, it is called cross-pollination. So here in pollination there are two processes, that is self-pollination. If the pollen of the anther lands on the stigma of the same flower or the other flower of the same plant, it's called self-pollination. But if it is the different plant, then of same kind, maybe different plant but of same kind, then it is called cross-pollination. And after it falls on the stigma, a tube-like structure will grow, and from that the pollen will travel and reach the ovule and match with the eggs. So this process of fusion of male and female gametes, and after the fusion they form a zygote. This whole process is called fertilization. This whole process is called fertilization. And after the formation of zygote, a new embryo will develop. And in this development, ovary will grow as a fruit and ovules will grow as a seed. Ovary will grow as a fruit and ovules are grow as seeds. So class, I hope you are able to understand the structure of flower. Then comes the male part and female part. Then comes the pollination part, and then comes the fertilization. I hope you are able to understand. If any problem, ask me class. I will help you. Have a great day. Be safe at home. Thank you.